Alright everyone, welcome to the second video of Dual Takes, which is just going to be a re-ranking of every single Outlaster advantage. I've actually done an Outlaster advantage ranking before back in my main channel, but that was in like 2023, and I've actually played quite a lot of Outlaster since then. So I feel like I can have a pretty good understanding of how useful some advantages are now. So the first one I'm going to go over is the Elim exit, only because it's right there. And I'm going to give it a solid A tier. The only drawback of the elimination exit is that you have to play it before the votes are read, and you can't vote yourself. Now, that sounds like a pretty bad deal, but there's some cases where an elimination exit is really powerful. I'd argue even more powerful than a safety advantage, which is what idols are called in Outlaster. Basically, the first scenario is in septuple eliminations, which even though you'll never actually bump into them in normal or even all-star mode in Outlaster, you're gonna see these massive multi-eliminations in competitive Outlaster. So having one of these elimination exits is really important for being able to bypass all the eliminations. Because here's why: when you use an elimination exit or an idol on the second or following eliminations of like some sort of mass elimination, you're actually just safe for every single vote out from there on out until the end of that tribal, which is completely broken and actually a bug, but they never fixed it, so that's why elimination exit's so powerful. And you're also never getting blood in your hands because you're not actively ending someone's game. An elimination exit is a pretty much entirely defensive advantage, whereas the idol, not the fucking safety advantage, can be used offensively, and it does have that sort of risk. Regardless of what I say about the elimination exit, though, I think the idol is just better. Now, even though you have to play it correctly, whereas the elimination exit, you don't have to worry about that. One, you keep your vote, and two, the safety advantage or the idol. Why do I call it the safety advantage? But anyways, the idol is able to be used in an offensive manner because you can use the idol to help someone else in the game, which can do two impacts. One, give you more and more trust with the person you save because you saved them, so of course they're going to be loyal to you. And second, potentially get someone you want out of the game easily out. And I think the fact that the game's been so molded around the idol, you see in actual Survivor games, you see all these idol vote splits, and you try to like bait the idol and to flush it. It's a key component of the strategical game, and the idol's literally just irreplaceable at this point, which makes it so good. It can mold the entire game around it. Like we saw basically an elimination exit, but with the ability to vote in Survivor Guatemala, it didn't really have that much of an impact, whereas the idol from Survivor Fiji on, including every single international version that holds it, it just has such a grapple on the game. It's crazy good. Now with that, let's move on to the extra vote, which I believe was actually the first ever non-idol advantage introduced in US Survivor. I think it was introduced in Survivor Worlds Apart, used by Dan Foley, and I think it's a C tier. There's nothing much you can do with the extra vote. You're basically just getting an extra vote, which isn't really all that crazy, but it can be used to great effect, especially in an Outlaster setting where advantages are just gonna run rampant. If you don't know how competitive Outlaster goes, sometimes there's like 3 to 4 advantages in circulation per camp, which can just like absolutely make the game incredibly miserable for anyone who hasn't found an advantage. But we have to monitor the importance of an extra vote. It can make a difference, especially when the tribes are just such a mess. Now, this obviously means the tribe can just unify under one easy vote. In that case, the idol just clears because you can cancel all those votes. But when the tribe is so chaotic that they're never gonna come together to agree on anything, I think it's really important to have a tool like the extra vote. Obviously, it doesn't guarantee your safety whatsoever, but it can be that swing to at least bring you to a tie. And if you can get into a tie vote, or hell, even a tiebreaker competition instead of having to go through the tie vote, that's where the extra vote can do its damage. Now, I do think there's better tools for doing this than the extra vote, but I think the extra vote still has a pretty good purpose. Now, on the flip side though, the fake safety has entirely no purpose. Mainly because in competitive Outlaster, everyone's able to realize that the idols people give to each other are entirely fake. So there's literally no point to believe an idol you're given is real at all. Honestly, one of the few reasons they're even used period is because when advantages are used period in Outlaster, they immediately respawn, and to my knowledge, it can respawn as something else, which is very powerful because it means that even though you have a fake safety, you can technically prevent advantages from being hidden in the game. But besides that, the fake safety really has no value. It has no power in this game, and you just look like a dumbass if you somehow think that your idol is real. Now, going on to the safety block, I think it's probably a D tier, mainly because it just has such a niche use. It really just comes from the idea that the safety block doesn't really provide you all that much. It only helps you in a specific scenario, and even though in Real Survivor we've seen the idol nullifier been used correctly twice, it doesn't mean it really means that much. Obviously, it can be used as a deterrent, but it really just is that. And also, from an entertainment standpoint, it prevents idle plays, which I'm not really a fan of, I'm gonna be honest. As a host and as a player for the Outlaster community, it's just not worth my time to see someone play a safety block and boom, you either have to give an advantage to someone else or you're just screwed. Now to think of it though, the safety block actually has some sort of usage. Mainly because it actually forces the people planning to use an idol to scramble. Especially when you don't know who the safety block is being played on until after the votes are cast. And after idols are able to be played, which is a very key note. Overall, I think the safety block has potential, but I'm putting it in D not because it's really bad, but it's just so niche that you're not really gonna care about it. Anyways, Super Idol immediately S. Actually, I'm gonna change the tier to be blue just to emphasize this. And yes, there's actually strategy with the Super Idol right here, right? Basically, you can just publicize that you have the Super Idol, and there's gonna be a lot of people in that game who are just too scared to actually go after you because you have this Super Idol. You'd have to either show that you have friends in this game, or they're just like ridiculously smart somehow. Otherwise, they're pretty much screwed. They would have to be willingly taking one of their own out of the game just to get rid of your Super Idol. But the problem with that is no one has the courage to just willingly sacrifice their game. People are willing to compromise on things, but the problem is people aren't willing to entirely sacrifice their game to save everyone else from a Super Idol. So the person who holds the Super Idol basically just gets a free ticket to Final Four. And when there's like 40 player games, that is ridiculous. Like, if you were able to use this at Final Four too, this would just be insanely broken and would just make Outlaster completely unfun on a competitive standpoint. But luckily, it can only be played up to Final 5. Anyways, not all that much to say about the Super Idol. It's just ridiculously broken. Anyways, onto the vote block here. I'm not actually sure where to put this. I think I value having an extra vote more than someone having no vote, honestly. It really depends. Because you're making your voice bigger in both scenarios. Only with the extra vote, you're making your voice bigger by giving yourself more power, but you're giving yourself more power using a vote block because you're removing someone else's power of the vote, which makes it really confusing. I'm actually gonna leave this debate up to the comments for now because I think it's pretty much tied for me because there's an equal amount of scenarios where I see both being useful, more useful than the other. But we can all agree that the vote steal is better than both of them, which is because it's literally both advantages combined into one. You block someone from voting entirely, and you get an extra vote. The only caveat to this is that you have to publicly take someone's vote, which makes it a bit more confusing. But either way, it's not like it's either way, it's not like there's anything else you can talk about the vote view. It's like, I mean, vote steal, like, is literally just the extra vote and the block a vote, but better because you get both worlds. I'm not sure what to say. And then finally, we have the vote view, which, as we all know, is the best advantage in the game and should be rated as such. On a real note, though, the nerf they did to vote view is just so fucking dirty. So what happened to the vote view is that you only get to know who voted for who after the prompt for idols, which is really problematic because you can't use it to guarantee who to target in terms of an idol play anymore, which kind of makes it like the second worst advantage in the game canonically, but it's already first place in my heart, not because of bias, by the way, but also the votes view still has a lot of power in a social standpoint because you can basically force people to vote your way because they're gonna be scared. And especially in the Outlaster community where a lot of people are admittedly sheep because they all suck, it's really convenient to have something like a vote view because you could scare people into voting with you unless they're like all just dead set. Obviously, the power of the vote view kind of diminishes when you have a higher caliber cast in an Outlaster event, but I think the vote view still has importance because some people are just naturally scared by nature, which can be really important when going through these really tough rounds. And that's why I don't think vote view is really that bad of an advantage. Like, none of these besides the fake view, besides the fake safety, is really that bad because they're all meant to be advantages in the game. You're always gaining something from having one of these 8 actual advantages in the game. Now, obviously, it doesn't guarantee that you're actually going to survive the vote or even come close to winning the game, but the thing is, from having all of these advantages, is just always going to be an inherent benefit to your game. Now, obviously, you don't always have to have an advantage in the game to be successful. You can just simply rely on the basic core social, strategic, and physical game, but having all these advantages on hand is a really good safety net for a player, especially when they're on the ropes. And that's why advantages have just had such a big influence on the Outlaster game to a point where people are convinced that the social game is about controlling the vote. Anyways, so that's pretty much my entire spiel on Outlaster advantages and how they impact the Outlaster video community as a whole. If you want more of this type of content from Dull Takes, hit that like button, also subscribe. We're turning this back into the 2010s, baby. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and goodbye.